On January 29th, last night, an American Airlines regional jet from Wichita, Kansas to Washington, D.C. crashed upon its descent into the Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. The reports coming out now suggest that the plane collided with a Black Hawk helicopter with 3 crew members on board. There does not appear to be any survivors. This is an extremely upsetting situation that obviously could have been prevented. While I don't have conclusive evidence right now, it's only been 12 hours since this happened, the reports coming out appear to suggest that it was the Black Hawk helicopter's fault. The ATC came out, there's a recording that said that the American Airlines flight was cleared for landing, and that the Black Hawk helicopter probably just should not have been there. And when I see stuff like this, I get so mad because it is preventable. So I'm making this video describing about what I think should happen given these circumstances for those poor families who lost a loved one. I hope they get great lawyers, and I hope they sue the federal government. Somebody has to pay. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about how to sue the federal government. The very first thing that I want to talk about is the concept of sovereign immunity. That's the very first thing that pops up when you think of suing the government. What is sovereign immunity? Well, it's a doctrine that dates back centuries. And essentially what it means is that the government, the sovereign, is the one who makes the laws. How can you sue someone who makes the laws? They are above the law. This goes back to the days when we had kings and queens, the common law. All laws were issued in the name of the king. So you can't sue the king because he can just change the laws. He is the one who issues the laws. So how can you sue the federal government when they are the ones who create the law? And for a long time, that was actually the case. The federal sovereign was immune from all potential types of torts. However, that changed. They introduced something called the Federal Tort Claims Act somewhere in the mid-20th century. I'm going to read a little excerpt from an academic paper that I pulled up. Until the mid-20th century, a tort victim could obtain compensation from the United States only by persuading Congress to pass a private bill compensating him for his loss. Congress enacted the Federal Tort Claims Act, or FTCA, which authorizes plaintiffs to obtain compensation from the United States for torts of its employees. Subjecting the federal government to tort liability creates a financial cost to the United States, and it also may incentivize government officials to base their decisions on desire to reduce the government's exposure to monetary damages, regardless of the perceived social benefit of an alternative. So there's a law, the FTCA. The FTCA allows you to sue. If you watched this channel before, you know about a year ago, I did an interview with Jamal Al-Safar. He was the lawyer in the Sutherland Springs shooting case. This was an FTCA case. It is an extremely interesting area of law, and there are some more caveats to it. If this were a third-party case, meaning if it was a refinery explosion in Pasadena and somebody came to my office, lawsuits would be filed the next day. They just would. You got to get a lawsuit on file to preserve evidence, all of that stuff. That's not going to happen here. Because the FTCA, you cannot file a case right away. You actually have to put the government on notice. Before you file an FTCA lawsuit, you have to inform the government of notice that you are intending to file a claim. And in that 6 months, they can choose to either accept your notice, to potentially settle the case, to get it off their books, to pay you what you're asking, or they can deny it. And then only after they deny your claim or the 6-month notice lapses, then can you file your case. So you're not going to see lawsuits filed tomorrow. You might see notices filed tomorrow, but you won't see lawsuits. Of course, when you are suing the government, the only jurisdiction that you're going to have is suing in federal court. Specifically, this happened in D.C., so they will be filing in federal court in D.C. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, it's assumed the 6-month notice goes unanswered or denied, meaning the victims file a lawsuit. What are they looking at next? It's very interesting. The FTCA does not allow for juries. This is not a case that will be held in front of a jury. It will be a case adjudicated by a federal judge. Usually, FTCA cases are also bifurcated, meaning there's 2 separate trials. There's a trial for liability, and then if the plaintiffs prevail on liability, then you pursue a trial based on damages. So that is what I think is going to happen. I think there's going to be an FTCA case filed by the federal government if, in fact, it was the Black Hawk helicopter's fault, depending on who was in charge of the Black Hawk helicopter. You don't just sue the United States of America, you sue the entity. If it was the government, you sue the government. If it was the Air Force, you sue the Air Force. So that is what I think is going to happen. Of course, I'm not absolving American Airlines in any way. If there's anything that they did wrong, there's probably some liability on their end as well. So maybe you'll see cases filed against American Airlines. But this was the first thing I thought of when I saw what's going on in the news. I hope these families hire great lawyers, great FTCA lawyers. If I could make a selfless recommendation, Jamal Al-Safar, he doesn't know I'm recommending him, but he's a great FTCA lawyer. All right, it's really sad. Talk to you guys later. Bye.